one of the things they say is that absent a linkage between nuclear and political restraint, America's traditional allies will conclude that the U.S. has traded temporary nuclear cooperation for acquiescence to Iranian hegemony in the region. Not true?
I would obviously disagree with that. I think that an Iran backed up by a nuclear weapon would be more able to project power in the region. And so that's why we don't want them to get a nuclear weapon. That's what this deal does.
All right. Boy, I just can't take any of that seriously. I'm sorry. Joining us now is Pete Hoekstra, former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, former U.S. Congressman from the great state of Michigan. And Congressman, great to speak to you. Maria Harf was being questioned by the AP reporter about an op-ed piece written by Henry Kissinger and George Shultz, two former secretaries of state, which tore apart this Iran so-called deal. And she basically said, well, there were a lot of big words in there, but not a lot of big ideas. I mean, you can't be more disrespectful than that. But this, today the latest, and I want you to weigh in on this, Vladimir Putin lifted a ban on supplying Iran with S-300 air defense missile systems. I mean, that's because of the deal.
That's exactly right. This was a deal that originally Russia had made back in 2007 with Iran to provide them with a sophisticated anti-aircraft equipment. But Russia, because of pressure from the United States and Israel, backed off, and really for almost 7 years now has put that deal on ice. Now that they sense a vacuum, they sense a lack of American leadership, and they sense that America wants a deal so badly, they're moving into that vacuum and have now announced that they're going to, finalize this agreement with Iran and ship this equipment. And this isn't the only place in the Middle East where they're doing it. They're also moving into a vacuum in Egypt, where the U.S. has been very reluctant to ship military equipment to Egypt, and Russia has negotiated and continues to negotiate more arms deals with Egypt.
All right, so let's look at this now. Hillary Clinton running for president. Most of this foreign policy was her foreign policy, along with, of course, her boss. And she was the reset button presenter. Russia has just fallen apart. They're buzzing our planes now and everything else. The Middle East is a tinderbox. It's all upside down and inside out. She still has Benghazi. She still has the email stuff going on. How on earth, Congressman, if she were a Republican, to dream, to even think, to even entertain the idea of running for president, she would have been laughed out of. She would have been laughed out of the business. But Hillary, all of a sudden, now she's the top contender again.
Well, she's the top contender. She's the only contender. It's going to be interesting to see exactly how long that lasts, because I think that there are a lot of Democrats who sense this vulnerability, especially on foreign policy. You outlined the major areas where their foreign policy, they are the architects of disaster. In Syria, where at one time she called Bashir Assad a fresh face, I think, of democracy or of the future. Their whole policy in Libya, Egypt, Yemen, the litany just goes on and on. They don't have a foreign policy success under the administration of the regime of Obama, Clinton, establishing foreign policy.
No, they absolutely don't. All right, what about on the Republican side? Let's start with Marco Rubio and talk about foreign policy. Immigration, certainly an issue where he came out for a path to citizenship and then backtracked. He's been very outspoken and shown great leadership on the Iran deal. What do you think his prospects are, now that he's announced?
Well, I think that, the Republicans, I think, are actually developing a very exciting field with Rubio, with Rand Paul, with Cruz, and, the other dozen or so other candidates that are going to come in, all of whom have, a track record of success. And none of these individuals are going to have a perfect track record, but they've got a lot of accomplishments. They have an impressive set of credentials individually. And I think what we have to do, and what I hope happens, is that they focus on a message a positive message, an alternative to Hillary Clinton and the Democrats, and they don't spend the next 12 months bashing each other, because they do have differences. But the bottom line is they have a lot more in common than what separates them. And that's what we have to remember, and that's what we need to focus on.
Yeah, I think I heard Lindsey Graham, who's probably going to announce, say that when asked about Marco Rubio on CNN, I think over the weekend, said, if he becomes the nominee, I will, proudly support him. So that's the attitude I think that they all have to take, and not damage each other while expressing their differences. Congressman, always great to talk to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Take care. Pete Hoekstra, ladies and gentlemen, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. It's going to be very, very interesting. From here on in, there's no stopping. Alan Dershowitz will join us to talk about the prosecution of Senator Menendez and more